Welcome to the Friends in Business podcast with your hosts, Ben Wright and Jemimah Ashleigh. Ben, known as the sales strategist, and Jemimah, our resident visibility expert, are here to share their wealth of knowledge and experience with a little fun along the way. Whether you're a leader, entrepreneur, or aspiring business owner, this is the podcast where we share everything we know about business to help you succeed. Let's get started. Welcome to the Friends in Business podcast.
Ben, welcome back. Another episode of Friends in Business podcast. We made it.
Number 3, 75% of the way to a top performing podcast.
Can you believe that? That's
No.
crazy, right?
No, four podcasts.
Do you think we'll have, I think we had 19 downloads already once we've released this one, like since we started this episode being uploaded. Hopefully 19 people have grabbed that, which would make us equal with almost where every other podcast ends up.
Yeah, well, the bar's low. We are definitely here to raise it. But I think more importantly, we were speaking about this last episode is what does friends in business mean? And I think we decided we were going to spend a little bit more time in that at the start of each episode to say, hey, we're actually here to help people from our broad backgrounds. And I think that's the reason that we're going to get past episode number 4. But hopefully that's the reason we're going to drive to episode number 1,000 is we genuinely actually want to help people and see them do better in their
And we have a
business.
lot to talk about. The one thing was coming up with topics of like each week we're like, what are we going to talk about this week? And the big thing has been where to start. Like there's so much we could help people with. And I think we're genuinely coming from that place, which is really nice.
Well, last week with social media, I think we hit a big one really early. I liked your thoughts there. And you don't always agree on what people say, but you take your lens to it.
Really?
And apply
I don't always agree.
No, I did like what I liked half of what you said. No, I actually liked all of what you said. And for me, I've actually focused a little bit more around those 4 areas you spoke around being an expert, around having personal posts, around having those sharing what you're learning and exciting. In fact, I didn't quite get them right, but for me, I've enjoyed that. So I've made that change to my social media.
You know, we did spend a bit of time on social media afterwards and we were having a bit of a play and did some stories. So that was for those who saw that.
Yeah, good fun.
Yeah, it was amazing. Today we're talking about networking.
Yeah.
Networking is one of, it's like the most loved thing that you do in business or the most hated. And it really doesn't fall anywhere in between. Did you know, as an example here, more people are scared of like death than they are of public speaking? And that can go for like those 20 seconds or 40-second elevator
pitches. You said more people are scared of death than public speaking. You mean the other way around, don't you? More people are scared of public speaking.
It's 100% what I mean. 100% what I mean. Yeah. You knew where I was going with this. Yeah. He's the numbers guy. I'm here for the comments and the jokes.
We want the facts to be right.
Yeah, of course. My apologies.
More people are scared of public speaking than death. That just is completely illogical in my mind.
Doing a 40-second pitch is actually more terrifying than getting up and dying. That to me sounds okay.
So morbid.
I mean, it's a choice. It's not one I would necessarily make. But it's really interesting because networking, I think, where a lot of people get really stuck with like, what am I going to say? And they're going to ask me questions Yeah.
Well, that's today's topic. Tell me before I get into it, what does networking mean to you?
Networking is, honestly, my net worth has been built by networking.
Yeah, great saying.
For sure. I have walked into so many rooms and I'm so grateful that I've had that opportunity. But I've worked for networking groups. I have been part of pretty much every one of the big ones that you can think of. It is how I built my business. And for me, networking comes down to 3 things. 1, going to a place where you're meeting new people, not necessarily people that you know before. 2, places that you're doing business. And 3 is that you are there to build relationships. And I think that's a big part for me that I think most people, have you ever had the experience when someone's like, hi, do you want to buy a house? And they're like, fastest card in the West. Do you want to buy a house right now? Mm-hmm. And you're like, no, Susan, I don't want to buy a house from you. Do you want to buy a candle? Like the next person, that's what networking has often felt like to me. Yeah,
like you are in a room and you are speed dating, but with businesses. So, but I think the piece you said there around the third bit around building relationships, for me, that's the really impactful part around networking. And we're going to spend a bit of time today talking about bringing some structure to how you network, because whilst a lot of people do fear public speaking, as you say, networking doesn't need to be one that we're fearful of, because there are so many ways that we can network that don't need to include public speaking.
For sure.
But also there are a lot of things we can do that prepare us better to network. And whilst we can talk about being thrown into the unknown as something that throws fear for people or builds fear for people, when you're prepared for anything in life, you are infinitely going to perform better. And where I love to focus my time around networking and what I teach is that you really get clear during your preparation. Because if you get that right, you can walk into networking rooms and actually have an agenda all ready to go before you've even started.
The preparation part's really important, because I just don't think I had probably ever thought about, especially early on in my business, I've got to be prepared to go in here. Most people just think you walk into a room, you have a conversation with someone, and maybe you might get a lead out of it.
Yeah.
But are you telling me there might be more to it than that, potentially?
Well, let's see. Because I've got 3 things we're going to talk about today. 3 things, and I like to say them at the start. We're going to go through each one. We have show notes, so you're going to be able to capture them as well. But certainly you need to hear these, Pete, because the context is really important. But we're going to be talking about how to think, what to write or say, and when to engage.
Great.
They're the 3 things we're going to talk about today. So
here for it. Let's
buckle in. We're ready to go. Okay, so how to think. This is all about how you get your brain wired and the preparation that comes with that ready to network. And the number one element of networking that I encourage people to get right is to pick your modality. Because we don't all have to do every type of networking. We don't all have to go to events or trade shows or cold call, speed dating, microclimate type of environments where we know nobody. Right? We can network in lots of different ways. In fact, we can even network virtually now.
Yeah, one of the things I have enjoyed out of COVID was that we now network. We can actually network in groups online, and I actually really quite like that, because you can look all business at the top and then party at the bottom.
Yeah. I do have shoes on today,
which is a surprise.
For another day. But certainly it's all about, so pick your modality that you want to network.
Yeah.
For me, what works really, really well is trade shows, because I know that the people I want to meet are generally very senior in businesses, and at trade shows, they're also there to network.
So let's go through a couple of these modalities. So one is traditional networking group. So that is one where maybe you have a breakfast or you have a lunch and you sit down and you go around the table and say, this is who I want to be. So let's call that traditional networking. Next might be trade shows. And so that could be exactly what you're talking about here, where you're going to really specifically focused events where your ideal client is already spending time and money. How interesting. Third thing, maybe an online networking group, which often are closely related, I think, to the traditional kind of breakfast meetings. What other types of networking are there?
Oh, well, you've covered a hell of a lot of the ones in there. I think when we're talking about the different types of networking events, broadly that's it. But within each, there's very, very, very significant numbers of different ways you can do it.
Yeah.
So when we're talking about going to trade shows, there are trade shows that are industry related to what you do. And they might be, if you are an electrician, they are trade shows that are all for the electrical industry.
I have a client that goes to all the Bunnings ones.
Great. Now,
he just goes to all the Bunnings. And I was like, and he's like, all he does is work with tradies. And I was like, of course, go where the tradies are. That makes sense.
So if you're an electrician, great, you can go to your electrical trade shows. But you might also go to where some of your customers hang out. So it might be facility management trade shows. It might be trade shows where procurement managers go to if you're in the commercial space. It might be home shows, right? All different types. If you're looking at industry groups, fantastic, covered there. If you're looking at peer-to-peer networking, you can have small types of networking. You can have big types of networking. You can have face-to-face. You can have industry types of groups, right? There's lots and lots of different types. But rather than focus on that today, what I actually want to focus on is how you become a great networker once you've got the how to think right. So for me, I always start with great networkers make lots of introductions. So it's not about how many introductions you are given, but it's how you are at introducing people yourself first. Because once you get that right and you actually know how to introduce someone else, those people start to want to introduce you.
So we might be talking about the law of reciprocity a little bit here.
The law of reciprocity.
Interesting.
Absolutely right.
I love it.
Now, to get that right, to be an effective networker, we actually need to know what we're going to say and how we're going to introduce someone to someone else. So when we talk about how to think, it's about picking your modality, but it's also about being really clear around how you will introduce other people.
Yeah.
And I recommend you just have a template for that says, hi, Bob, I want to introduce you to Jemimah. Bob, meet Jemimah. Jemimah, meet Bob.
Yeah.
I'm introducing you to because Jemimah's great at, Bob's great at.
Yeah.
Please get in touch
There's
with
a bit
me.
of synergy here. I thought you guys might. And do you think you have to draw I don't think that's for this. Do you think you have to draw the bow? Do you think you have to go, well, Bob and Jemimah, I recommend you get on a phone call, and Jemimah, I want you to specifically explain that you do this, this, and this, and Bob? Or are you treating us like we're adults and maybe we'll figure it out by ourselves?
Yeah, I generally tend to run along the lines of let them figure out a couple of things. Yeah. One is it makes it really easy to repeat at my end. Mm-hmm. So, or the people that I'm working with, you get to have a format that you're regularly repeating, so it's easy for you. The second reason is that you never actually know what they're going to work through between them, and if you channel the conversation into a certain area, you take away that beautiful element of just exploring white space. Now, when someone says there's a red car, you look at red cars for the rest of the day.
Yeah,
you forget all the other types of cars.
Yeah.
So the third part of that how to think is you pick your modality and you've got really good at introducing others is also about making sure you follow through whenever you introduce people. Because what that also does is it shows you're very good at whatever you do. It doesn't matter if you're a lawyer or an accountant or a service provider or you're selling widgets.
You're actually going to do what you say you're going to do.
Yeah, that's right. And all of a sudden you're building your own brand.
Yeah.
People who refer well get referred. So when we're talking about networking with intention, the number one thing that I talk about is getting clear on how to think.
Yeah.
So where you're going to play and how you're going to introduce people before you even worry about introductions in return.
Yeah, I love that. And I like that going in there intentionally and going, I'm not here necessarily to close business, because ultimately that's going to happen. That's just how it goes. If you're a good person, you're good at what you do, and you aren't coming from a place of, I'm going to sell to everyone in that room. Yeah. Do you want to buy a house? Those people, Sharon, calm down.
Yeah.
You actually have the ability where you are head and shoulders already above.
Yep. Agreed. So you've built trust.
Yeah.
How to think. You've become someone that people want to make referrals to.
Yes.
Then we actually need to start to think about what are we going to write or what are we going to say?
Yes.
So that is making sure that when we are introduced, we're ready to go. Or more importantly, when we meet people, we have something that we can repeat without having to think about it. We go into autopilot. When I meet Jemimah, I have a 2-sentence pitch or a 2-sentence piece of communication that I can say to anyone at any time without needing to think about it and panic.
Elevator pitch.
Your elevator pitch. Yeah. I don't call it the elevator pitch because so much of networking now is done outside of that.
I live on the 35th floor of an apartment building. So when I go up in my apartment, it's at least 3 to 4 minutes in an elevator. Yeah. Like, you don't want me talking that long. So, and you've always referred to it as like a couple of sentence pitches to me.
Yeah. Why don't we go through what they are? A couple of sentence pitches. I'll give you some examples.
Great. Please, let's.
Excellent. So, for me, it's all about saying who I am, what I do, and the value I provide. That is the most important part. Right? It's not the features and benefits, but it's that value and outcomes you can provide. So, I might share one of mine that I might use. So, for a segment of my market, I'm out at a trade show. Let's say I'm with small business owners.
I'm going to be a small business owner. Hi, I'm Claire today.
Claire, lovely to meet you.
You too.
My name's Ben.
Hi, Ben.
So I'm a sales strategist. In fact, let's rewind this a little bit. That's a very forced introduction. Thanks, Jemimah.
No worries. It's Claire, actually.
Well, Claire. So I'm meeting Claire and we're talking about Claire and we have some small talk that says, that starts to say, what are you doing? Why are you here? How is life for you? But when we get to that point where it's really natural to say what you do, we always run with who you are first. I'm Ben. What you do. So I'm a sales strategist. Right? My name's Ben Wright. I'm a sales strategist who works with small businesses.
Yep.
Right, it's clear on what I do. After working with me, small business owners go home and spend less time at night worrying about where their next sale will come from. So straight away, I know that if I'm dealing with a small business owner who's trying to grow their business or has that concern around where's the next sale going to come from, and it's classic small business. Right, we are living by the seat of our pants a little bit, but also we have significant ebbs and flows. straight away I'm pre-qualifying that anyone who is at home at night, instead of being present with their kids, with their family, with their partner, with whoever the special people are in their life, instead of being present at dinner, they're worried about where their sales are going to come from the next day.
You're really hitting a pain point straight away. You're just got like that thing that you're thinking. Because one of the things I often say to my clients is, well, it's great that that's what you do, but what does it sound like?
Yeah.
What is it like? Because someone won't just necessarily go, I need an introduction to a sales strategist to be really helpful.
Yeah.
It sounds like something else.
Yeah.
And it often can sound like I'm not getting any sales coming through the door. I don't know what to do with it.
Yeah.
And it's keeping me up at night. And those are the conversations I think business owners have versus.
Yeah. Yeah. So getting that pitch right so you can deliver it on autopilot is the key. Second part of this is to be really easy to refer. So that means you've got to be easy to find.
Yeah.
Too often.
Visible, if you will.
Visible. It's funny we say that. But when we're easy to find, when someone introduces us and people can find information on us from easy to find sources, we're easy to contact, right? We're easy to actually get on the phone.
Oh, having a phone number, having an email, a contact booking form, social media that you can have a look at, a website that's up and operational.
Yep, exactly right. So we get that nailed, so we get our pitch nailed, we become easy to refer, and the last piece of that is we're constantly looking at how we create value. That's all about what to write and what to say, because when you're thinking about others, much like how to think, where am I going to network and how am I going to help people, when it comes to how I'm going to be introduced, when we're really clear on the value we provide, we're easy to find, and we have that in a pitch that we can say time and time again, networking becomes a lot easier.
It does, doesn't it?
Yeah, we're not worried about what we're going to say.
What am I going to say? I'm going to walk in a room and someone's going to ask me a question. Yeah. Have you had a conversation before? Hi, how are you? Good, how are you?
We all know how to talk about our sporting team or our kids or our lives, the things we're passionate about.
Yeah.
And because we talk about it so much, we're prepared. Same here. We've got to be prepared to network with intention.
Bit of practice.
So number one was all about how to think.
Yeah.
Number two was what to write or what to say. Number three is all about when to engage. So we've met someone. We met Claire. We had a great conversation.
Hi. How you doing? Love stuff.
Nice to see you again, Claire. For me, the first part here is all about persistence beats resistance. So that's about doing the basics really well. As soon as you finish that networking event, logging the customers into your CRM. Once they're in there, they're visible. They're visible to you and you're going to do something about it.
So did you know, just a little fun fact for a second, if you meet Claire at a sales pitch, right, or at an event, so if you're thinking about the amount of people you meet at an event, I can meet, and this isn't a joke, you know how I feel about networking, could meet up to 100 people in a week pretty comfortably. If I don't add them to my CRM, do you know how long it takes me to forget that they exist?
Probably less time than
it's 42 days for me to even forget that person exists on the planet. Like, just not even like an inkling or a faint bell of, I know someone that does that. I'm talking if there is no further interaction with me and Claire at any point, 42 days the psychology tells us, and it's not personal. Have you ever met someone, be honest about this, where you've gone, hey, it's nice to meet you, and they go, we've met multiple times?
Yeah. If my wife was listening right now, she'd be going,
I do the classic one, and I've done this too. I'm like, have you met Ben? Like, just trying to put them in front of you because I'll forget their name. It's not personal. It's because the conversation we've often had with them is a little bit memorable.
Yeah.
We've said something of interest, maybe piqued, maybe like stood in front of the room, potentially presented, which is another one that I get in trouble for because people feel like they know you when you've presented to them and you meet them for 3 seconds. If you don't have that follow-up process in place, 42 days before people forget you exist on the planet. And that's how you end up looking like a goose saying things like, hey, hi.
Nice to meet you.
Nice to meet you. And they're like, we've met multiple times.
Well, that's all about persistence beating resistance.
100%.
So it's about making sure you've got a structure post-networking, that you record everything, and you follow up straight away. Connect with these people through social media. Call them if that's what you've agreed to do, but make sure they remember who you are and those 42 days don't lapse without you having had meaningful connections. I will go to networking events, and for every introduction I give, I get a 30% return rate around following it up. So for every person, every 10 people that I introduce, if I go and introduce 10 Claires tomorrow, only 3 of them will follow up, and I'm giving them a referral.
A good lead. And this happens to me too, and it drives me crazy because I'm giving you the best of the best.
Yeah. So we've got to get that process right behind the scenes.
Yeah.
Where we're making sure that we are following through. Next part around that is really being clear on what your goals are before you meet.
Yeah.
And I talk a lot about goals in everything we do from a strategic point of view, but really importantly here is if you can think about goals that benefit both parties, your conversation becomes a lot smoother because you're prepared around expanding the pie for both of you rather than just going in around what you need. We all know that mutual relationships they last longer, they are far more prosperous, and they are easier to hold because you're both getting benefits.
So you and I, let's use you and I meet. So fun fact, we should have probably told this at the start of the podcast, but you and I meet at a networking group. We met at a networking event. I was speaking at that event and you happened to be visiting that specific location in Melbourne and you mentioned you're from Queensland and someone said, oh, there's a guy from Queensland here. And I was like, cool, I'll go and have a chat. We sat down and had a conversation and I think we probably only spoke 5 or 10 minutes maybe at that meeting, but we both did really good follow-up because it was like, oh, it's really nice to meet you too, because we've both nailed this pretty well to grow our businesses. And the conversation was, hey, I'm in town for an extra couple of days. You seemed interesting. Looks like you're doing cool stuff. Would love to have a chat.
Yeah.
And we actually immediately both went into that conversation. I think particularly from my perspective, and I'd like to hear yours, extremely open-minded because I knew who you were and I had researched you and I went and had a look and like, is this person who Ben appears to be, is that who he is? People had really good things to say about you. There was really good referrals there. There was good conversation that was had. And then we sit down and have a conversation where at that point, I think we're both just exploring if we could work together.
Yeah.
And it was either, is he a good referral partner? First one, absolutely, tick. 2, is this someone that we share an ideal client with? Yep, tick. 3, we actually got along really well despite being wildly different. We were like, oh, this is actually a fun dynamic. Tick. And then it was like, well, then you can start to explore additional business opportunities.
Yeah.
Tick.
And I think you've hit the piece around when to engage there, around having a system, looking at goals for both parties. But the third piece, the really important piece, is to show you care. And that's about doing your research. So before we had that meeting, I knew your background.
Yeah.
So I knew where we could add value together. But also by having spent the time to understand you, you engaged better with me because I came in knowing a bit about you rather than just peddling what was
Oh, so you used to run a podcast. Yes, I did.
Yeah.
Interesting. I've been thinking about that. And here we are.
Yeah.
With 75% of our podcasts ready to go.
Absolutely. So there's
hopefully 19 downloads of this episode.
So there's 3 things really important because I want to round this off today and then we're going to leave everyone with something really important for today. But the first one is around how to think. So that's getting your modality right and becoming someone that can introduce people really well, see it through and make great connections. You become a known quantity, you become trusted, and people want to do things for you in reverse. So that's all about how to think. Second piece around what to write or say. So that's around having an elevator pitch, as we say, ready to go that you can roll out.
Ben doesn't say that. Everyone else will.
We definitely don't have elevators here. But it's also being really easy to refer, so you're easy to find and you follow through and you know how to create value because when you can create that, you're going to win. Third, and as important as any other, is it knowing when to engage. So that's having systems there. You know, once you meet people, you take the time to put them in your CRM.
Hi, nice to meet you. Thanks so much. And this is all automated because if we're meeting 100 people, I don't have time for that.
That's right. We follow up strategically or systematically. We know that we can create value for both sides, so we're expanding the pie. And really, really importantly is we're doing preparation before we meet people. We don't just rock up to a meeting post-networking ready to fly by the seat of our pants, right? We're ready to know exactly what we need to achieve. Get that right, and what we have is a structure ready to network. We are going to talk lead generation. It's about 2 or 3 episodes time. Yeah, we're going to have a really good look about how you then go and generate leads. But I think really importantly is we've got to know how to prospect first. Yeah, and figuring out where those people are. That's right. Yeah, so more to come on that. But that, for me, is the key elements of networking that we need to get right before we get started. Yeah, 100%. When you had talked to me about, I've got this idea for modality and this is what we're doing and there's a pie involved, there was just this moment where I went, I think Ben knows what he's talking about with networking. We've both met at networking. But I will say this process for me, and it's so interesting because one of the key things that we said that we're going to talk about is systems. And this is just a very unsexy system that makes it so much easier to get all of this done. Like this is the stuff that
this is the extra zeros on paychecks. This is the extra zeros on the bank account. If you're constantly doing good referrals, meeting people, going in with no agenda, but having an understanding of who they are, figuring out who they are in advance, what they can do to help you, what you can do to help them, you suddenly have every single person can almost be allocated as a referral partner or a potential customer or a lead generator or a mate.
Sometimes we do make friends in business.
Do we?
Right.
That was good.
Go.
That was like, I really just wanted that to be the end. We need to do the wrap up. That was the greatest ending. We've done it. Yes, before we go.
Well, I'm not going to let us go because one thing that we have promised is at the end of every podcast, one thing, the most important thing from the day. Why don't I kick off today?
Please.
So for me, the single most important piece is that we need to know how to introduce ourselves.
Yeah.
Just spend the time to be able to comfortably say who you are, what you do, which includes who you help, and the value or the outcomes you provide. Because when you get that, you are so much more comfortable at any event. That's me.
My number one takeaway is the right modality, like figuring out what rooms you need to be in. I think, and I'm going to talk about this from a perspective of being a female entrepreneur here, one of the hardest rooms that I've ever walked into are particularly women's networking groups. I find them very difficult to be in from a networking perspective because it often is what I have found a little bit more of a environment where we're celebrating being together and it's just a circle celebration of that versus the business stuff. So from my perspective, like the modality of like what rooms are you in, what choices and like who is in that room is the number one thing if you're looking at growing a business, because I have been derailed many times by going to the wrong rooms. I think you will have been to the wrong rooms as well. Also, really important of like what quality of that person and what are you looking to do out of that. Setting your intention is really important there too.
Yeah, I love it. I love it. That today is almost a silver bullet episode where if you can take the right chunks, you really can make a difference. I can't wait for the next episode. We're not far away. But until then, let's remember that we can make friends in business. We're your friends. And when we can help you, we'd love to hear from you.
I've been tried and you know I've been tested.
Thank you for listening to the Friends in Business podcast. This episode was brought to you by your hosts, Ben Wright and Jemimah Ashleigh, recorded in beautiful Noosa, Queensland. For more insights and resources, visit Ben at strongersalesteams.com and Jemimah at jemimahashleigh.com. If today's podcast has helped you, we'd be so grateful if you could leave a review and share with someone you know. This will help more people in the world benefit from the hard work we're putting in to bring you the best content we possibly can.